This is a soybean farm in Brazil. And this is a meat market in China. These two places have everything to do with each other. The meat sold at Sanyunli Market in Beijing comes from Chinese farms. The animals on those farms eat soybeans, and most of those come from one place, Brazil. Everything you see here will soon be on the dining tables of Chinese consumers, but not in the form of soybeans. As incomes have risen in China, so has meat consumption. The economies of Brazil, Argentina, and others have shifted to meet that demand, putting more emphasis than ever on soybeans. It shows how Chinese consumers can reshape entire economies, even large ones. But in the long run, this could do more harm than good. We're traveling around the world to find out how China is changing basically everything. This week, agriculture. I'm Nikhil Sonad reporting for Quartz. You're watching because China. There's a lot of huge bugs here.
Soja tem liquidez, tem comprador, né? E sabe que vai produzir e vai vender.
This is Marcio Binotti. He runs a company that sells soybean seeds to growers. At his facility, the beans are husked, dried, sorted, and bagged up. So I'm climbing this wall of soybeans on a very unsafe ladder. Each one of these bags contains about 6 million soybean seeds, which we're told can produce about 72 tons of soybeans. From here, the beans find their way back into the ground, and from there they go abroad. Nearly all the soybeans Brazil grows are exported, and they go overwhelmingly to China.
Essa é a grande locomotiva da produção de soja do Brasil, impulsionada principalmente por essa demanda chinesa.
China is the world's largest importer of soybeans, buying $38 billion worth in 2018, almost 20 times more than the next highest importer. Brazil is by far the biggest source of those beans, accounting for over 75%. That's great news in particular for Brazil's biggest farms, since the top 1.5% of rural landowners control over half of the country's agricultural land. Why so much soy? For one thing, it's illegal in China to grow genetically modified soybeans, so Brazil's GMO beans are cheaper. Plus, China used to get a lot from the US, but the trade war between those two countries has put huge tariffs on soybeans, leading American exports to decline. So Brazil is more important than ever. That's why, at this trade fair held just outside Brasilia, every aspect of the soybean industry is on display.
We're working since 1972 in soybean breeding.
E foi campeã com a produtividade de 85,57 sacos por hectare.
Cultivares com ciclo desde 100 dias até 150 dias.
Brazil has plenty of land suitable for growing soybeans, but to keep up with Chinese demand, it needs even more. And increasingly, it's finding it underneath Brazil's forests.
We're seeing that the deforestation increased a lot in this past 5 years.
Isabel Figueiredo is an ecologist at an NGO based in Brasilia that works on conservation and sustainability. Brazil's most famous forest is the Amazon, here. This map was created by the Map Biomass Initiative, which uses satellite imagery to track deforestation. The red dots here represent parts of the Amazon that since 1985 have been turned from forest into agriculture. The problem goes well beyond the rainforest. Isabel's work focuses on the Cerrado, a vast savanna in central Brazil, the most biodiverse in the world and 1/4 of the country's total land area. Deforestation is happening there even faster than in the Amazon. Over half of the forests in this part of Brazil are gone. This is what it looks like now. This is what the area we filmed looked like from overhead in 1984. And here it is in 2016. And here's what Cerrado deforestation looks like on a larger scale. It's covered in red dots. This affects more than just forests and the animals that live in them. It affects people too. When forests are destroyed, they absorb less carbon dioxide, accelerating climate change and affecting weather in faraway countries. And within Brazil, the Cerrado is home to many indigenous groups.
Hoje, a questão da produção em grande escala em terra indígena está tendo vários conflitos, né? porque muito povo não aceita esse tipo de atividade em terra indígena.
Valdemilso Ariabo is the leader of the Balatipone people, an indigenous group that lives in the state of Mato Grosso, where large amounts of forest is being cleared to make room for farms.
Eu sou guerreiro, Balatiponé.
He's come to Brasilia to meet with other indigenous leaders and discuss how they can protect their lands. And now there's a new sense of urgency.
Então, em relação a esse governo, a política do governo, a questão da política indígena, a questão do território indígena, o risco aumentou muito mais com esse governo.
He's referring to the 2018 election of Jair Bolsonaro, Brazil's president. Bolsonaro has already loosened restrictions on protected lands and has referred to indigenous people living on them as zoo animals. This strong stance against indigenous people has emboldened attackers who forcibly take their lands and sell them to farmers. In the past, some of these attacks have ended in deaths.
The farms, they're coming into the valleys, destroying houses, they are killing people to make people to leave the areas that they are occupying traditionally.
Numbers of such deaths, which often happen deep in the rainforest, are hard to come by. But in 2017, even before Bolsonaro was elected, at least 70 were killed in land conflicts. His administration says it doesn't support violence, but they do argue that there's an economic reason for turning forest into farmland.
In general, people see that for us to have income, we need to deforest, to clear, and then plant some commodity.
There is some truth to that. Brazil's agribusiness sector, in which soybeans are the most important product, created 19 million jobs in 2015. People in Brazil's soybean growing areas tend to be better educated and healthier. But those economic gains are not equally distributed. One study found that areas with soy production have higher levels of income inequality.
Quando acontece uma exploração de produção de soja próximo ao território ou em torno do território, a gente não tem nenhum benefício a não ser os malefícios que fica, né?
What's more, Brazil's emphasis on exporting soybeans and other commodities is probably not even good for the economy in the long run.
Stronger economies tend to be those that are diversified.
Margaret Myers is director of the Asia and Latin America program at The Dialogue, a think tank based in Washington, D.C.
And increasingly, this reliance on soy in particular, but also other primary commodities, is seen as a problematic feature of the Brazilian economy.
Brazil's economy has long relied on commodity exports, beginning with sugar and coffee, later iron ore and oil, and now soybeans. The hope has been that money from commodities could be used to move toward a more sophisticated economy, with value-added exports and services. But many fear that Bolsonaro's close connections with the agribusiness sector means he'll instead stick with the old model. That's risky for a few reasons. For one, it exposes Brazil to the risks of changes in prices and demand.
Então é uma preocupação cada vez mais constante isso aí, porque esse complexo soja é muito vulnerável, está totalmente dependente da compra da demanda chinesa.
Environmental damage poses another long-term risk to the economy. When farmers clear the diverse cerrado and plant a single crop year after year, the soil eventually fails to grow that crop effectively. The rates of monocropping, as it's called, are higher in Brazil than in other places. And Isabel says that yields from soy farms have already been falling. How sustainable is it to take this approach to the economy?
No sustainability at all.
The Chinese consumer is driving so much in the emergence of new industries across the globe. This is not just the case in soy production and in agriculture, but really across the board.
The sheer scale of Chinese consumer demand has reshaped Brazil's economy, politics, and even its environment. It's not just Brazil. Developing countries around the world are staking their futures on figuring out what China's increasingly wealthy population wants to buy. The pull of China is stronger than ever. But if Brazil and countries like it want to succeed in the long term, they'll have to push too, to create the future they want, not the one China needs. This story is a free episode of our series Because China. Click to sign up for a free trial for a Quartz membership. You'll get access to the entire series and all of our in-depth reporting on the forces reshaping the global economy.